entertainer comes all the way from South Carolina. We've had, the first time I met Steve Porter, oh my gosh, I can't even remember when, but what I remember is this handsome young man with the sparkling eyes, the mustache, oh my gosh. And then he talks like this. You know, he's just as cute as a bug's ear. He is one of the neatest reciters of classic poetry. He also writes some of his own. He had a CD out last year that it stayed at the top of the Western Music Association poetry CD for
21 months.
21 months.
Top 10.
And I mean top 10. In the top 10 for 21 months with the Western Music Association. You listen to him, you will know why. My friend from South Carolina, Mr. Steve Porter.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate that, and it's so good to be here. I tell you, I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and just appreciate all y'all coming out, and appreciate Joe for inviting me, and just had a great time. This first poem I'm going to do is written by a fellow named Rod McQuarrie. It's written about his dad's top saddle horse, and the title of it is For Woody. From the snowdrifts in the canyon, behind the granite and the pinyon, past the trout and beaver where young Quakies crowd to share. From the icy plaster caked across the mountain goat's dominion comes the lifeblood of our valley as it tumbles down from there. And it gurgles, almost chuckles past the boulders and the gravel. Cheerfully it detours through the ditches man might make. With only gravity its master, it always knows which way to travel, warm and foamy, ever downward through the sloughs and toward the lake. There the bulrush stops the ripples where the sheets of ice are dying. The waxing sun shows promise that the winter's lost its sting. Overhead, the floating regiments of geese formations flying, driven northward to their nesting ground by instinct every spring. In one pasture by the water, tired pension horses wander. They wait for my alfalfa and the sun to conquer cold. In this middle ground between active duty and the promise yonder, they don't care too much for scenery. They're thin and tired and old. Last among these pensioners, one sorrel gelding stumbles, with swollen knee and seedy toe. You can see why he's so lame. He's lost his youth, but not his dignity. He would die before he humbles. He was my dad's top saddle horse, and Woody is his name. I never cared too much for Woody, not the kind of horse I'd cling to. He was hard to catch and fussy, and he never made a pet. But he could jump at cattle. And that was one thing that he would do. He had the heart of giants. I can still recall it yet. We were bringing calvy heifers from a close and handy pasture. Bus rode bronco Woody because he had a lot to learn. One heifer broke. They ran to head her, held their ground and stopped disaster with dew claws cut in circles. They beat that cow at every turn. So she ran blind for the willows. Bus and Woody had to race her, nose to nose and pushing shoulders as she made her frantic try, and they pushed her in a circle till she quit and they could face her. Because Buster didn't weaken and Woody did not let her by. But now I watch him strain to shuffle. I touched my rifle neath the seat. It's a friend to suffering horses, and at this range I couldn't miss. He'd find green pastures in an instant. And for my dad, I'd do it neat. He'd never hear the whisper, never feel the nozzle's kiss. But the cranes have come, and they're dancing. The spring sun melts away the snow. Oh, I know I'll need that rifle on some cold November day, but for a sorrel colt who beat a ringy heifer long ago, I'll just go about my business until this feeling goes away. Thank you. Thank you. This next one I'm going to do, I met an old friend out in Dalhart, Texas. Well, actually in Springer, New Mexico. Me and my wife went out to R.W. Hampton's place several years ago for a week, and he was putting on a little thing where you'd come out and ride, and he would do concerts. And I met an old fellow named Bill Anderton. He was a cowboy all of his life, and so we kept in touch and went out there a couple of years later, and me and him went up to his son's place up in Clayton, New Mexico, and did some riding. So he wrote me some letters and stuff, and he wrote me this letter, and he told me this story about him riding his horse and this cell phone he had, and the cell phone going off, and he was riding, and it caused a big wreck and all this. So, and I thought it really happened because it sounded like something that would happen to Bill. And so I was talking to him a little bit later, a couple of weeks later, and he said, "How'd you like that story I sent you?" And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "When did that happen?" I said, that was quite a wreck." He said, "I just made that up." He said, "I didn't have anything to do one day and just wrote that and said that popped up in my head." And I said, "Well, you know what? I'm going to take that and make a poem out of it." And my wife had been saying, "You know, you need to write something funny." And so that was a challenge for me. And I said, "Well, okay, I'll take this. This is a good opportunity." So this is what came out of that story, and I titled it Bill versus Progress. Now, Bill was getting along in years, just loved a simple life. Spent most of his days a horseback, free from toil and from strife. Never owned a darn computer. iPods were not his style. iPhones were too complicated. He liked the kind you'd dial. But modern ways were pushing hard, and Bill, he began to bend, so he bought a brand new cell phone and threw caution to the wind. He figured he'd join the crowd. What trouble could it be? They told him he'd be cool, you know, and it had a guarantee. Now, Bill was good at riding broncs, could fan them with the best. But soon this new contraption would put old Bill to the test. He had this big stout 4-year-old, the finest bay you'd see, but unlike that brand new cell phone, broncs don't have a guarantee. So Bill decides to take a ride and see what old bay will do, but before he rode too far away, that bronc just breaks in two. He lines Bill out upon the ground. That old bay sure could buck. Bill climbed back on and said a prayer, just hoping for some luck. Old bay now settles down a bit. Bill's nerves are calm and cool until that darn old cell phone rings and bronc acts like a fool. It seems now Bill had sprouted wings, went sailing through the air. That phone had caused a tragic wreck, turned hope into despair. It too had also taken flight to regions far and wide, and though he searched and combed the earth, that cell phone sure could hide. So Bill told Cody, "Call that beast. We're sure to hear it beep. And even though I'm cool, you know, we're going to plant it deep." Just how to end this cell phone's life, he knew just what to do. With a boot heel placed dead center, his misery would be through. So now among the sage and sand, a new grave can be found. It seems progress had its boxing match. And Bill, well, he had won that round. Thank you. This next one is one of my favorite, and I wish I had written it. I didn't. But it was written by a fellow named Rodney Nelson. And all my life, and I'm sure all your life, you've heard the expression, where there's a will, there's a way. And I can't think of a better poem anywhere that illustrates this point better than this poem. It's called The Elevator Scale. Now, don't blame me. The blame should fall on the guilty, I'd insist. And the one who caused this grief for me was that ag economist. He claimed my style was obsolete and that mode no longer pays. If I wish to stay in business, I must yield to modern ways. I must keep records every day despite the mental strain. Must calculate my feed cost, know my critter's rate of gain. Well, the figures I collected, they could drive sane men berserk. Took the pleasure out of ranching and it doubled all my work. I measured something every day like what every critter ate. Beauty wouldn't save a brood cow if her EPDs weren't great. Then we frame-sized all the chickens and we speed-bred all the cats. And a maximized production kept blue heeler biting stats. Records now became a passion. Nothing else was now much fun. Everything I had was measured. That is, everything but one. Well, I didn't want to do it. What else am I to say? I started up my pickup truck and filled it up with hay. I never had a clue that day that what I did was wrong when I stopped and asked the missus if she'd like to ride along. She inquired of my intentions. All right, I lied that day. I'm going to New Salem just to weigh this load of hay. Well, I checked the readout on the scales. I drove it with my bride. Then I told her, sweet as sugar, that she'd have to step outside. She hesitated not a bit. She even acted glad. It was when I checked the scale again that she knew that she had been had. Have you ever known the fury of 100 rabid dogs? Or been in a metal building where they're castrating hogs? Well, you should have heard the screaming, and you should have heard her wail the day I weighed the missus on the elevator scale. Thank you so much. I sure have enjoyed this. And appreciate y'all coming out, and thank you. Thank you so much.
Savor the moment. This is why I am female in a male genre world. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steve Porter.
Ghost riders in the sky. Ghost riders in the sky.